So, this one time in Louisville, you know, it's the 90s. Jackass was big. And shopping carts were meant to be rode in parking lots. Myself, my buddy Josh, his brother Kay, their stepbrothers Richie and Bobby, the twins, and I believe a dude goes by the name of Special K was there. I have that memory, but I'm not 100% sure. But I believe Special K was there. We obviously are skating, and the ones that aren't skating are riding shopping carts into the little middle section with all the vegetation, and a cop whips in. I'm not from Louisville. I've heard all these things about a group of kids. So many kids can't walk together on the same side of the street after a certain time because they consider you a gang, and I've heard these curfew rules and all these things, and I don't know. All I know is this cop whips in. Most of us take off booking. Kay don't. Kay stays there for whatever reason. I don't remember why, but I take off booking. First time in my life I've ever had to run from a cop. Don't even really know if I needed to run. I just kind of panicked. But I take off booking. I remember seeing Richie or Bobby one out of the corner of my eye, yelling things back, disrespectful, horrible things, as they ran, because they had to do everything to 110%. I get a decent amount of way away, and I'm scared. I'm like, my parents, if I get in trouble for skating outside the Walgreens or whatever it was, if I get in trouble for this, my parents are killing me. Like, I'm dead. So here's a dumpster at the back of this building. Pop the top on that dumpster, dive in, pull the lid down, wait it out. I'm in this dumpster a good 10 minutes, kind of peeking out, not seeing anything. So on one night, run from the cops for the first time in my life, hitting a dumpster for the first time in my life. 10 minutes in this dumpster, and I'm laughing at myself. I'm like, dude, what? I mean, you're skating like you're hanging out somewhere. I mean, you're not doing anything wrong. Like, what were they going to do? Now they think you've done something wrong because you've ran, and here you are in this stinking dumpster, because it reeked, getting into God knows what, when you really didn't do anything wrong. Like, you were good. I mean, what, they take your birthday? Worst thing they can do is make you go home. And we were right there on Bardstown Road, which is right where Kay and Josh lived, or mom lived at the time. So, I mean, we were going to walk home anyway. It wasn't that far. So, you know, it's one of those things I'm not proud of. Not because I did anything wrong, but because I acted like an idiot. I wasn't the only one that ran. I don't remember who all ran. My money's on Special K didn't run, because Special K wasn't much of a runner. But K, I don't think Caleb ran. Actually, I know he didn't, because he had to talk to the cops. And they let him go, because he wasn't doing anything. I think they may have told him not to mess with the shopping carts. You got to understand, and to protect the innocent, my first time in Louisville meeting, I knew my buddy Josh. I'm not using last names. My buddy Josh from down here, he took me up there, and that's how I met his brother and stepbrothers, because they lived up there. But upon meeting one of the stepbrothers, the first day I met them, they got caught for something and taken in by a cop. You know, it wasn't nothing bad. It's not like these career criminals. It was good dudes. Like, we were just rowdy. I don't know. But when I met my buddy Josh in high school, I'd never been to Louisville. And I never, like, I'd obviously been various places, but never with just other kids, like, kind of somewhat unsupervised, you know. So by the time I was old enough to have my license, we were going to Louisville on a regular basis. When Josh introduced me to Louisville, I fell in love. And to this day, the experiences I had in Louisville in the late 90s are my favorite experiences I've ever had anywhere. As on a personal level, just me, without having my wife and kids, just my life up to that point. Like, I loved being back home with my friends back home. And one of my best friends, I've spoke about a lot on this podcast and stuff, Eric, who's no longer with us, he had been to Louisville with Josh and liked it. We never actually got to go together. But as much as I loved all my friends and the people I lived with back home, Louisville was different because there were people like me there. I was somewhat weird, dressed a little different. I was into a different type of music, and that culture was there, and I longed for that really bad. But it was fun, and it was adventurous, and I think that was the big thing. That's something that probably would have wore off after a while there. But I loved being in Louisville, and I can't speak to Louisville today because I don't get to go very often. I've not been back and actually being into anything in years. But Louisville, from an outsider's perspective, because I can't give you the insider's perspective, Louisville from, say, 96, 97 to 2000, probably, to me, was wonderful as an outsider coming in. I do these little podcasts from time to time about places I've been and things like that, and it's because I have a lot of memories from certain places that I do it, or I thought it was a unique experience. But the Louisville one's special to me because I really loved it, and I was really envious of Kay because he got to live there, and I would aggravate Josh to death, like, dude, why are you not living there? Why are you not going back? Like, I'm sure there's so many things that they didn't like, but or maybe there's so many negatives. I only got to experience those positives. My first introduction to Louisville was what made me fall in love with Louisville. These people had a different vibe. My buddy Josh had a different vibe to begin with. Like, he was a cool dude. He was quiet and stuff, but like, he was natured a little differently, and there was something about him that's kind of made you like him. And I think that was more just him, because I thought at first that was because he'd spent time in Louisville. But after I met his brother and stepbrothers and Special K and all these dudes from Louisville, like, I realized, no, they have a different mentality. Like, there's this metal punk skater mentality they have that is just cool. And Josh is more laid back like us. There was a little of that in Josh, though, and I think that's what made him and his brother, though they were very different at the time, so much fun for me to hang out with, because I got these two different spectrums, and I really, really liked it. But first going up there, I don't know if it's the exact first night, the first time, there's so many nights in Louisville, so many weekends, so many things happen, like it starts to blur, but I remember the moment that I was like, man, if I could move here today, I would. There's a place that's no longer open. Shoot, it closed down before I quit going in the late 90s, I believe, called Pandemonium. It's this small little music club in Louisville. It's on Bardstown Road up towards the Highlands up that way. And like, it's this first come, first serve, I guess, like, set up to play local bands. There was an arcade and pool tables and stuff next door, and then the bands were in this small room, and that's where I learned a lot about mosh pits, and that's where I learned how dancing in a pit, picking up change, they call it, and etiquette, and being in a pit, and the possible violence of a pit, and the rush you get from a pit. And I was exposed to some local bands that I really liked, that just, there was this music scene there in Louisville that we didn't have back home. We had some cool people trying to do some cool things back home. I was trying to play in a band back home, but they had a scene, and this small little place, I mean, it's not big as anything. I don't know the dimensions, but it's small. And it was just free. It was cool to get into. But you're there in the Highlands, and And that first day in the Highlands, I got to see Ear Ecstasy, this huge music store that I ended up seeing. The band Cold had done an acoustic deal there. That would have never happened at a small store where I was from. But Ear Ecstasy's there, and Electric Ladyland's there, and then you go on up, and in the same area, I can't remember how, but you've got Headliners Music Hall. We've seen Soulfly and El Nino and all these bands at Headliners, and there's a music scene. This is just on one street, and it seemed like in the Highlands, like you had a lot of the kids, more goth kids, more like I was, kind of, you had these neat little shops and stores, and these head shops, and these stores where you could, buy these, just weird stuff. It was a great place. And in that same weekend that I got exposed to Pandemonium, as I remembered, it could have been the next weekend, I don't know, but I have this memory in my head of being exposed to Pandemonium, and then like the next night going to Tech World and watching a band for, I think it's $5, something like that, going in and watching local bands play, and then it's this CD store, like music store, but they have this stage in a small area, and people are so pumped. And I mean, like, it wasn't just small bands coming out. Like Hatebreed came. I don't, they were legitimate bands coming to Tech World, and it was nothing. Like, I mean, we had places twice that size where I was from that could have been used for that, but we didn't get that. There was a local dude named Trevor Huff that had a band, and he done this thing called the Modern Rock Revival, and that's really, I've talked about that, I believe, on some other podcasts. That really got me into wanting to play music, and that was kind of I know we had a metal culture, maybe, and a punk culture that I wasn't familiar with. It came on later on, but at my time when I was around, like, there was 2 or 3 bands. There was a couple local bands we looked up to, and then us and some other, it's a band called Vital D-Line with a guy named Jason Sturgill and, Justin Reynolds. I can't remember who the drummer was for that band, but like, they were a great band. They were very different, very talented, extremely talented. Jason Sturgill was one of the most musically talented human beings I've ever seen in my life. And I played with some friends, and we ended up going separate ways, and I had 2 bands basically, and then there was a band, I never can think of their name, but I know there was 2 guys, a Blair guy played guitar for him, Tim Blair maybe a dude named Philip Blair sang for him at one time. Our buddy Will, that was in the band with us, that ended up passing away, he sang for him for a while. There was a guy named Richard, played guitar, a Dobson guy maybe. Like, I remember looking up to that band. I remember seeing them at Modern Rock Revival, because at that time there was a dude named Big E played guitar for them, and that's the extent of my knowledge on this dude, that he took the time to show us some parts on the guitar once, and he played in a local band that I thought was cool. But see, Louisville had this everywhere. There was Sin, and there was Incursion 502, and there was MSD, and when I first heard MSD, I just thought, man, this band is amazing. I was always kind of I was big into spookcore. I loved Cold Chamber. And on the way that Cold Chamber was structured, and kind of their presentation and things of that nature, maybe not sound, but things of that nature, the only band I ever really found close to them was some Rob Zombie stuff. Like Rob Zombie kind of put me in that mind of them. And then MSD very much put me in a mind of Cold Chamber, and I loved it. I loved their presentation, their show. We started going to their Halloween shows, going up and going with Kay and them, going to the Halloween shows, and I believe I ended up seeing 3 in total, and it was the event of the year for me. Like, that's what I was excited about all year long. So, as within a couple weeks of my first trip to Louisville, it just got this mythical feel and just value put on it that I wanted to be in this place. I loved this place, and I felt at home in this place. And we spent a lot of time in Louisville. We spent a lot of time skating. We spent a lot of time really a whole lot of time going and watching music. But at the time that I was there, I thought in my head that it was just this music scene, and the fact that, you go to was it St. Matthew's Mall or Xavier or whatever, like you go to these places, these people, there was people there that kind of dressed like me and kind of, you know, even though we probably had nothing in common because we didn't know each other as people, like sometimes you feel more comfortable if you're in a group of people that you feel are more similar to you, you know. And so initially I guess I kind of felt like that was what turned me on to this place. Looking back, you know, it was the people I met. It was Kay and Richie and Bobby and Josh and Special K. It was that's what, you know, and the things we did. Like, I can't sit and tell you every story of everything we did. I can tell you about the time we were skating behind Thornton's, I think it was, and I took a run and go for whatever reason to jump and missed. Was jumping over somebody or something and hit the side of Josh's mom's van and busted out the minivan window. Like, you know, doing something that we probably shouldn't have been doing, and next thing you know, there's a police chopper out, and, you know, I don't know if that was for us or not. I would have to tell you what we were doing, and I'm not going to do that. Just walking the streets in the Highlands and hanging out, like meeting these people, watching, I don't remember if it was Richie or Bobby go over the fence at the little Holiday Inn type place there that had the foreign owner, and swimming in the pool and then coming out and getting chased out by that guy. A difference in mentality. This is something that I didn't like about Louisville. Like, going downtown, like, scared me a little bit at first. Like, because we were walking downtown for something, maybe in a Thunder over Louisville or something once, and a cop was like, I would recommend you guys don't walk that way. He didn't say, hey, it's okay, I'm a cop. I mean, it was, I would recommend you don't go. Like, there was nothing he could do about it, and if we were smart, we just wouldn't go that way. We'd find an alternate route. So I found, you know, that kind of scary, that aspect. And, like, people were a little more down for violence, it seemed like sometimes. And I don't know what the deal was there, but again, my memory's not good, and the dudes used to look identical. I don't remember if it was Richie or Bobby who just basically had to knock a dude out coming out of a Dairy Queen. But, you know, I remember going to Steak and Shake and just ordering water because it was free, and a lot of times just hanging out and it late at night and them really wanting us to leave. But there was a feeling about that area, a feeling about that place that I've never felt replicated in any other place. I do believe it was mostly the people. You know, I mean, 90% the people. Because it wasn't just the things we did was not the only thing that I was, you know, that made me fond of the place, I guess. It was also, like, a lot of the times I remember, like, for example, I remember one night we had a ramp, and we were out back of Josh's house, and I actually got a picture of it. We were skating and stuff, and hitting the little ramp, the little box jump and stuff, and just hanging out, and they had an English bulldog that could skateboard, and I thought that was the neatest thing. And, like, that night's a really important memory for me. You know, that could have happened anywhere. That could have happened because I got really important memories of me and Josh hanging out down here, you know. But Kay didn't, up to that point, Kay hadn't come down as much, and the twins wasn't down as much. That happened later on. When they came down here, we had a ball. So that's kind of proof to me, too, that it was more the people. But there was a feeling about that area, you know. There's also, I don't know, I felt free up there, and I don't know if that was the people I was around or if it was the area, but something about that, I felt free. You know, we had a neighbor, Frank, I think was his name, that didn't like, I guess, us kids because we were loud and noisy and say and do things, and we would provoke Frank often. You know, throw a microphone and a guitar outside and sing Power Violence 30-second death metal songs to Frank about horrible things. You know, like, there was a freedom to do things. There was a freedom, and I think it was mostly the company I had, but somewhat the way at least that city made me feel. I've been back a couple of times to take my daughter to concerts and just went downtown, and it doesn't have the same feel, riding around 6 deep in a minivan, blaring new metal and just goofing off. It is a different feeling than, the stress of trying to get through traffic to get your wife and daughter to a concert and drop them off and then go find a place to park and wait in the vehicle for it to be over. So, it's a different feeling. So I didn't have that same experience with West Virginia as I did. I'm sorry. I've been traveling a lot lately. I didn't have that same experience with Louisville in later years as I did when I was younger. But as I went back in later years, I don't know if Tech World's open. Pandemonium's been closed a long time. I'm not going to watch the bands that I used to go to watch. MSD's no longer together. It's weird. That place doesn't have the same appeal to me. I attempted living outside there as close as I could get for a while before I met my wife, and I did like it, but I wasn't able to do it for other reasons. And I believe I could have went down a bad path if I'd stayed there too long. But it was fun, and I think it's because, like I said, there was this sense of freedom. There was this sense of fitting in, and there was a sense of just music is everywhere. Like I said, you had Ear Ecstasy, and which was a record store that they done cool little events and had bands in. You had headliners. You had Tech World. You had Louisville Gardens, whatever it is there, Freedom Hall. There were so many venues for music, and there was always local bands doing this. Then you had LRS Fest, and the radio. Listening to the radio in Louisville was so different, because when I listened at home, there was a point in time where we had the show called Trev and Bubba and on WKCB, and they did play some stuff I was into and stuff. But they were, constantly getting shut down or had stuff said to them because of it. They really had to fight to get to do that. But in Louisville, the Fox or LRS, either one, it was, that's what it was my type of music almost all the time. Plus local bands got great airplay. We actually missed their performance, but when we went to Summer Sanitarium, which was at the Kentucky Speedway, which isn't far from Louisville, there were 3 bands, local bands, I believe, got to play outside before the concert started as part of that series. One of them was Cornbread Mafia from around Louisville. The other one was MSD, which I always considered a Louisville band, and I don't know who the third one was. But we actually missed that because we didn't know that was going down, and that would have been, because I really liked MSD that much, that would have made my day to got to have seen MSD and then System of a Down and Korn and those guys later. That would have been a huge deal for me. And a lot of times, it's another reason that probably Louisville's a big deal to me and means a lot to me is because it was kind of like a staging area for a lot of those concerts. We went to Louisville before we went to Summer Sanitarium. We stayed there, and it was a huge group of us that got to go. And then when we went to Ozfest in Cincinnati, we staged that from Louisville. We went to Louisville first, stayed at Louisville, and then drove up to Ozfest. It was kind of the jumping off point for whatever we were going to do. Now, eventually those guys came down here, started to come down here more often that I knew of. Obviously Kay's dad lived down here, so he'd been coming down for years, and eventually moved back. And I don't know if Richie and Bobby'd ever come, I don't know if Special K'd ever come, but, bringing those dudes down, taking them to the lake, and going to the skate park in Pikeville with them, that was a cool experience. So it shows me that it's just, I had quality people around me is a lot of why I enjoyed my time so much. But Louisville was special. It was something that, an experience in a place that is always stuck with me. I've always had a positive feeling about Louisville because of those experiences. And look, when I do these, I've not done them all yet, and everyone's going to be different, and I don't know what they're all going to be entitled. I think the one was entitled One Time in New York, This is going to probably be entitled That One Time in Louisville, because I started out with, there's tons of stories. People who've close to me have heard a lot of Richie and Bobby stories over the years. I got a friend that really looks forward to Richie and Bobby stories. But most of those stories should not be told here. Let those people tell those stories if they want to. I would gladly have them on the podcast to do it. I tried to get Kay to do a podcast with me, and he seems a little iffy about it. Not everybody likes to do this. But, yeah, there's a lot of good stories out there. But I'll tell the ones on me, but it's kind of hard to tell the ones on everybody else. Because, plus a lot of them are just not PC or PG at all. It's a different world. That's back before everybody got butthurt, back when all this happened. So, it's a different time and a different place. But that was some of my experience in Louisville. I loved it there, and it'll always hold, a special place in my heart. What I really wanted to do was, at the beginning of this podcast or at the end, I would prefer to have introed this with an MSD song. I don't know how copyright, how this stuff works, where that would get me pulled from, so I'm not going to do it. MSD is available on iTunes, and I would recommend, if you want to get into it, listen to it, find them there. Again, they're no longer together, but I think we've got 2 or 3 albums up on iTunes. You can find them on YouTube as well. It's a little bit harder. You probably want to put in MSD Louisville, Kentucky, or MSD Tech World, or MSD in one of their songs, because there's some type of car part thing that's a MSD or something, and it pops up a lot. Plus, that is the municipal sewer district or whatever in Louisville, which has nothing to do with the name MSD, my understanding. But if you wanted to check them out, if I'm going to give a recommendation, it's not to say that it's their best song. Inside the Code is probably my favorite. But what I would have opened this with, I would have liked to have opened this with the song Priapism. I cannot say it. Go on YouTube and look up MSD Priapism. Yeah, I can't say it. That would have been what I'd opened it up with. It's got a little sample from the Beetlejuice movie. I always liked that. That's what I would have opened the show with, and I would have closed the show with Filth. They're both off the October Bleeding album. It was their first album, my favorite album. It's just good, homemade, unsigned first album rock metal from a local band out of Louisville, Kentucky. I like it, and I wish I could have played it for you. I can't, but you can always go listen to it yourself. I have a book, and if you live anywhere near Eastern Kentucky, there's only one place to get that book. That is the Red Spotted Newt bookstore in Hazard, Kentucky. That's READ, Red Spotted Newt in Hazard, Kentucky. They've got everything. It's official, I think. I don't know. Guinness World Records may be coming pretty soon. I think the president's actually going to sign it into law. They are the greatest bookstore in the world, so you can just go down there and check that out. If they don't have it, they can get it for you. Great people opened it. Great people that are running it. It's a great store. Go on now, go get you some books. If you don't live close to here and you want to be a horrible person and not get it from the Red Spotted Newt, you can get it from Amazon. It is available for free shipping, I believe, but the price is about to go back up on Amazon because it's been on sale on Amazon, and once that happens, the cheapest place to get it will be the Red Spotted Newt. There's 3 of those, 2 children's books, one I wrote for my son, and a poetry book. There's another one done. I'm not going to make any promises on when that thing's coming out because I'm lazy and I'm not really doing anything about it. Yeah, I think that may be everything I have on this episode. Stay tuned in. You're going to get the regular podcast. Often you're going to get these One Time in Bangladesh, whatever they are, podcasts about places I've been or cities I like to talk about. You're going to get podcasts about places I hike and go, and you're going to get retrocasts about things from the 80s and 90s and things of that nature. I just kind of mix it up because that's what I like to do. Wash your hands. Apparently buy toilet paper. I don't know. And like Jim Carrey says, old people do still serve a purpose. And don't go dying on me.